All right, thanks everyone. This is Blair here from Time Trades. I am online today with Quantum White Rabbit, the visionary behind the quantum tunnel feature within Time Trades. And we're going to do how to make the most use of quantum tunnels video for you. So Quantum White Rabbit, Mr. Rabbit, would you like to do a quick intro and kick it off?
Yeah, sure. So when I was originally coming up with the idea for quantum tunnels, it was based off of W.D. Gann's Tunnels Through the Air, and it was inspired by some of the things that I was reading in the book. And when I would place the fans up and I would place other tools up, I would see how it actually would make tunnels and how they would respect the lines accordingly. And then depending on what angles that you're using and the pivots that you're using, the way that it works on the chart is mind-blowingly accurate sometimes and almost all the time, and it's garnered quite a bit of attention.
So should I just be using these as support and resistance lines?
You could, but you also want to use them as momentum and direction speed indicators. So time and price you can almost look at as like time space time, and you're going to be moving faster in certain areas, you'll be moving slower in other areas, and you can actually look for them for momentum indicators. So for example, when I'm looking at your screen right now, can you highlight over one of the areas so we can get the numbers that pop up?
Sure, let's take the most recent completed day here first.
If you look where that 1:8 ratio is on that fan that's first originating over there on the left hand side of the screen,
right, this guy here from the top, or this guy?
Yeah, that one right there. So you see how those wicks pop up? That is the energy trying to grab light. That's the way that I view it, as light. So it's trying to grab that light energy for that next move up. So when you have a high wick that's piercing through that light, that's a directional momentum indicator in my eyes. And then once it almost reaches the top of that area, which is another 8-to-1 area, it doesn't need any more light. Over to the left just a little bit more, right where it pivots. Right there, exactly.
Right.
And then it comes down and it finds that 1-to-4. So when I'm looking at those numbers, I'm not looking at a 1/4, with the exception of knowing which direction I'm going. That 1-to-4 to me is a 5, which is going to be showing you where your resistance area or your support area is going to be. That's where I would be looking for a bounce almost every single time.
Right, because of course nothing ever goes straight up. It uses a lot of energy to blast off here, but it's obviously going to need to correct a little bit to restore some energy. And you're saying the 1/4 line is, and also it just barely touches the 1/3 as well. That's a good place for it to restore some energy for another move up.
Well, even if you go back over to that 1/4 area and then look to the right to where the current price action bounced off of, you're going to see that that turned into a hard support area.
Yeah. Yeah. So
you can even go a little bit more recent. Go to the end of April where you have that downward that goes into the upward, and that's still your same support area.
Yeah, exactly. And that also happens to be halfway between these two wheel of 24 lines here, right? So the wheel of 24 configuration that I'm using right now is 7,200. Okay. So what that means is every $7,200, we start a new lap around the wheel. And typically price will reverse after every lap, but when it doesn't, it'll often reverse halfway around. And that's exactly what happened here. And this also happens to be on a 1/2 down, right? So given that you said that this is a energy and directional and speed indicator as well, it would appear as though the energy is most recently is leaving Bitcoin, because it seems to be closely mapping these declining quantum lines.
So one of the things that I'm looking at here, especially with the current candle that we're looking at, and I realize that these are dailies, so it's not gonna be as accurate as far as lower time frames are concerned, but it gives you a really good leg to stand on, because there we are at another 8-to-1 area, but we don't see that high wick. We don't see a lot of wicking happening right there. So that shows you that that energy that it's trying to absorb is kind of fizzling out right now. So I would expect a little bit of a shorter term downtrend, just to go and reestablish another support. And one of the numbers I'm looking at is about 42 to 43,000.
Right, which coincidentally is just around the next 24 line down. And we've got a time trades forecast pivot low on May 15th, that also aligns with this 1 by 1 line up. So this kind of area down here seems to be a likely area for it to touch, given everything we're talking about.
Absolutely. I give almost 100% confluence to that, just because there's multiple indicators and there's multiple things that are showing us that that's direction that it's headed. Now, does it want to go up? Yes, but that's just based off of the collective sentiment right now. But as far as what the energy in the chart is telling us, it's telling us something completely different. So I want to make sure whoever's watching this, don't get caught with your pants down.
Yeah, yeah. Or if you're a long-term holder, then doesn't matter. None of this stuff matters. But if you're
I
a
would just scale
short-term,
in a little bit more then.
yeah, exactly. But if you're a short-term trader, yeah, swoosh down from 47 or 57 to 43, 42. Yeah, that's a big move, and you don't want to be caught on the wrong side of that. Tell me about what happens in your system when the lines cross.
So when the lines cross, I call those flux zones, because you're going to have two directions of energy that are penetrating one another. And one's going to have more weight than the other. And it really just depends on the directional momentum that you're dealing with currently in the charts and how they're going to be interacting with each other. So you have that 8-to-1 that's on the top right there, and that's coming off and hitting a 2-by-1. So I always add the numbers together in my math that I use. So an 8-to-1 to me is an 8+1. So that's going to give me a 9 point. A 9 point is going to be where that light's coming from. Then you have that 2-to-1 area. That's a 2+1, which is going to be a 3 point, which is still another quantum number. So that 9 and 3 are going to be playing off of each other. The 9's going to have a little bit more weight to it because it still mirrors the rest of the chart and the rest of the energy, but the 3 is limited to just that 3 energy. So it's not going to be quite as strong. But it's still a positive and negative polarity flip. So when you have a 6, which don't show up on the fans, which is okay, but you have the 3 is going to be your positive and negative polarity shift. So when it hits that area, that's where you're going to be looking for your change in direction, your change in polarity.
Right. So what you're saying then is, even if price is like way down here, right? This crossing up here at the 57 level is still going to affect price.
Yes, it could act as a magnet or it can act as a repulsor. It really just depends.
Right, right. And notice right around our target area in our time frame we're talking about down here on May 15th, we've got another flux zone.
And that's another really cool thing too, is that you have that flux zone where it's hitting a 1-by-2. So there's a 3, and it's also a 1-by-1 area, which is a 2 in my mind. So when you have a 2 and a 3, that equals a 5. I'm looking at that as my hard support.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And certainly we've seen that behavior back here at this level as well, where it just barely tagged that 24 line at 43.2K and formed a very nice pivot low back in February. Another interesting example of flux zones at work is up here on April 9th. We've got the 1x1 down crossing the 1x3 up, and price. This is a good example of, I think, what you would call a polarity flip, right?
Yes, that's going to be your polarity flip. You see how it ends up shooting it up there really quick,
Yeah.
and then it comes right back down again. That's basically the magnet that's just kind of like releasing that energy, but then it's pulling it right back after the fact. And what's really cool about that area as well is that you have those dojis that are in there. So that's showing you that there's, you know, polarity on both sides of it, and it's going to want a slingshot.
Nice. Yeah, and then there's some dojis up here at the top as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then another example, here's another great example of the lines crossing, right? Even though price is a few thousand above it, right? So this indicates another brief polarity flip, but then the main trend resumed.
Right. Well, over there too, it's also right on that 8-to-1 line, which is that light source. So it was gathering that information for whatever energy was in the market at the time.
Yeah.
And then it was playing itself off of that.
Awesome. Any other tips or tricks or observations you'd like to make?
So one of the things that I definitely want to, you know, convey is that everything works in triangles. So if you understand vortex math, and it's not very involved at all, it's literally just being able to play doubles with numbers. 3, 6, and 9 are the key to the universe, like Nikola Tesla said. If you understand how those numbers work, then you have a key to the universe. So I would say brush up on your Tesla, and you'll understand a lot better.
Awesome. Thanks, Rabbit. Appreciate you joining us. Looking forward to our next video together. Thanks, everyone, and I hope you found this useful, and thank you for using Time Trades.